The fluorescent lights in the courtroom buzzed overhead as I sat perfectly still, my hands folded over the swell of my 8-month pregnant belly. My daughter, the one person I'd protected through hell itself, stood at the front of the room, a USB drive clutched in her small hand. She was only 7 years old, but she carried herself with a strength that made my heart break and swell with pride at the same time. "Your Honor," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "I have something you need to see." My soon-to-be ex-husband, Marcus, went pale. His lawyer stood up immediately, objecting, but the judge raised her hand for silence. I watched Marcus's face drain of color as my daughter walked to the bailiff and handed over the drive. His mistress, Vanessa, sat in the gallery behind him, her own pregnant belly on full display. 8 months, just like mine. The timing wasn't a coincidence. The bailiff loaded the video. The courtroom screens flickered to life, and I heard my own voice, weak and desperate, coming through the speakers. The footage showed me in a hospital bed, alone, my water broken, contractions tearing through my body. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., the night I'd gone into premature labor at 32 weeks. "Marcus, please," my recorded voice begged into the phone. "The baby's coming. I'm scared. I need you." His voice came through tinny but clear. "I can't right now, Claire. Vanessa needs me. She's having complications. I'll come when I can." The courtroom went silent except for my labored breathing on the video. Then came the sound I'll never forget, a woman's moan in the background of Marcus's call, followed by his rushed whisper, "Not now, babe. She'll hear you." I remembered that moment with crystal clarity. How I'd lain in that hospital bed, feeling my premature baby fighting to enter the world, while my husband chose another woman and her child over us. How the nurses had held my hand because no one else would. How I delivered our daughter alone at 33 weeks. A tiny, fragile thing who spent her first month in the NICU while Marcus was across town at a different hospital, holding Vanessa's hand through her delivery. Let me tell you how I got here. 6 months earlier, I was living what I thought was a perfect life. Marcus and I had been married for 9 years. We'd met in college. He was pre-law, brilliant and ambitious, and I was studying architecture. I fell for his confidence, the way he commanded every room he entered. He pursued me relentlessly until I said yes to that first date, and within 2 years we were married. I gave up my architecture dreams when he started his law practice. He needed support, he said, someone to handle the home front while he built his career. I told myself it was temporary, that once he was established, I'd go back to my designs, my passion for creating spaces that made people feel safe and whole. That was 9 years ago. I never went back. Instead, I became the perfect lawyer's wife. I hosted dinner parties for his colleagues, managed our home with precision, raised our daughter Emma with devotion, and asked for nothing in return. When Marcus made partner at 35, I smiled for the photos and pretended not to notice how his secretary, Vanessa, stood just a little too close to him in the group shot. I should have noticed sooner. The signs were all there, glaring and obvious in hindsight. The late nights that became routine. The shower he took immediately upon arriving home, washing away the scent of her perfume. The way his phone was suddenly password protected after years of casual openness. The credit card charges for restaurants I'd never been to, hotels for business trips that didn't match his calendar. But I was 8 months pregnant with our second child, exhausted, swollen, and trusting. So unbearably trusting. The truth crashed into my world on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I'd been having Braxton Hicks contractions all morning. Nothing serious, just my body preparing for labor. Emma had a half day at school, and I'd promised to take her for ice cream afterward. As I drove past Marcus's law firm on our way to the ice cream shop, Emma pointed out the window. "Daddy's car is here," she said. "Can we say hi?" I hesitated. Marcus hated surprise visits at the office. But Emma's hopeful face melted my resistance. "Just for a minute," I agreed. We took the elevator to the 15th floor, Emma chattering excitedly about showing Daddy her spelling test, 100%, all stars. The receptionist's face went strange when she saw us, a flicker of panic quickly masked by a professional smile. "Mrs. Harrison," she said, her voice too bright. "Mr. Harrison, didn't mention you were stopping by." "It's a surprise," I said, my hand on Emma's shoulder. "Is he in his office?" He's in a meeting, she stammered. I should buzz him first. But Emma had already pulled away from me, running down the familiar hallway toward Marcus's corner office. I followed, my pregnant body moving more slowly, that strange tightness returning to my belly. Emma reached the door first and pushed it open. Daddy, look at my... She stopped. I reached her a second later and understood why. Marcus was sitting on the edge of his desk. Vanessa was standing between his legs, her hands on his shoulders, his hands on her waist. They weren't kissing. We'd interrupted just before that moment, but the intimacy of their position was undeniable. Worse, impossibly worse, Vanessa's hand moved to her own belly and I saw it. The swell beneath her silk blouse. She was pregnant. Time seemed to fracture. I heard Emma's confused whisper, Daddy. I saw Marcus's face cycle through shock, panic, and then something harder. Calculation. Claire, he said, standing quickly. Vanessa stepped back but didn't leave. This isn't what it looks like. The laugh that came out of me sounded foreign, jagged. Then what is it, Marcus? What exactly am I looking at? Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Emma tugged at my hand, frightened by the tension crackling through the room. I pulled her against my side, my hand automatically moving to shield her eyes from whatever was about to unfold. Vanessa spoke then, her voice soft, almost apologetic. Claire, I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. Find out what? I demanded, though I already knew. My body knew. The tightness in my chest, the way my hands trembled, the sick understanding washing through me. Marcus stepped forward, his lawyer face sliding into place, the one he used in court, calm and controlled. Vanessa and I have been seeing each other for 18 months. She's 6 months pregnant. It's mine. 6 months. I was 8 months pregnant. He'd gotten his mistress pregnant while I was carrying his child. The math was devastating. He'd been sleeping with both of us simultaneously, dividing himself between 2 beds, 2 women, 2 futures. How could you? I whispered. How could I? His calm cracked, revealing the resentment beneath. You want to know how? Because you stopped being my wife years ago, Claire. You became a mother, a housekeeper, a social coordinator for my career. When was the last time you actually saw me? Really saw me? The accusation hit like a slap. I gave up everything for you. My career, my dreams. I never asked you to, he interrupted coldly. Those were your choices. Don't make me responsible for your regrets. Vanessa touched his arm, a gesture of comfort that made my vision blur with rage. She was younger than me, 28 to my 36, beautiful in that effortless way I'd never managed, even before pregnancy bloat and exhaustion had taken their toll. Marcus, she said softly, maybe we should? Maybe you should what? I found my voice, sharp and clear. Finish destroying my family? Or have you already done that? Emma started to cry. The sound cut through everything else, and I knelt beside her, my pregnant belly making the movement awkward. It's okay, sweetheart, I whispered, knowing it wasn't, knowing nothing would be okay again. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, that gesture I'd once found endearing, now just another manipulation. I want a divorce, Claire. I've already spoken to an attorney. You'll be well provided for. Emma too. But Vanessa and I, we're planning a future together. She's 6 months pregnant, I said numbly. You've known for months. How long were you going to wait to tell me? His silence was answer enough. He'd planned to wait until after I gave birth, I realized. Until our second child was safely delivered, until he had what he wanted from me. Then he would have discarded me cleanly, probably with some generous settlement to ease his guilt. Get out of my office, he said, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet I'd learned to fear over the years. Take Emma and go home. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow. I stood slowly, my hand finding Emma's. My legs felt disconnected from my body, operating on autopilot as I turned toward the door. But before I left, I looked at Vanessa. Really looked at her. She couldn't meet my eyes. Her hand rested protectively over her belly, the same gesture I made 100 times a day. In that moment, I saw that she wasn't a villain. She was just another woman who'd believed Marcus's lies, who'd trusted his promises, who'd thought herself special enough to be different. He'll do it to you too, I said quietly. Whatever he's telling you now, whatever promises he's making, he'll break them. That's what he does. That's enough, Marcus snapped. I left, Emma's hand tight in mine, each step down that hallway feeling like walking through water. The receptionist wouldn't look at me. The associates I passed suddenly found their files fascinating. They all knew. The whole firm probably knew. I'd been the last to figure it out. The naive wife who believed her husband when he said he was working late. The drive home was a blur. Emma cried softly in the back seat, asking questions I couldn't answer. Why was Daddy with that lady? Why did she have a baby in her tummy too? Was Daddy going to live with her instead of us? I don't know, sweetheart, I said, my voice mechanical. I don't know. At home, I went through the motions of normalcy. I made Emma a snack. I turned on her favorite cartoon. I smiled and nodded when she showed me her spelling test again, the one she'd wanted to share with her father. Then I locked myself in the bathroom and fell apart. I sat on the cold tile floor and cried until my throat was raw, until my ribs ached from the force of my sobs. The baby inside me kicked frantically, disturbed by my distress, and I pressed my hands to my belly and whispered apologies. I was supposed to protect this child, to bring it into a stable, loving home. Instead, I'd brought it into a shattered family, a broken promise. Around me, the evidence of my carefully constructed life mocked me. The monogram towels I'd chosen for our anniversary. The framed photo of our wedding day, Marcus looking at me like I was his whole world. The bath products I'd bought because some magazine said they'd keep me attractive for my husband during pregnancy. All of it was a lie. I don't know how long I sat there before I heard Emma knocking softly. Mommy, are you okay? I wiped my face, tried to compose myself. I'm fine, baby. Just give me a minute. But I wasn't fine, and I wouldn't be for a very long time. The next 3 days passed in a fog of shock and disbelief. Marcus didn't come home that first night, or the second, or the third. He sent a text, just a text, saying he was staying at a hotel while we figured things out. His lawyer contacted me on day 4. The divorce papers arrived by courier, clinical and cold. Marcus wanted joint custody of Emma, shared assets, and a clean split. The settlement was generous by most standards, the house, child support, alimony for 2 years, but it felt like blood money. Payment for the years I'd wasted, the dreams I'd abandoned, the humiliation of being replaced. I hired my own lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, who listened to my story with grim understanding. We can fight this, she said. Infidelity, especially during pregnancy, plays well to judges. We can argue for more. But I wasn't thinking about money. I was thinking about the baby growing inside me, the one who would be born into this chaos. I was thinking about Emma, who'd started having nightmares about her family splitting apart. I was thinking about the months ahead, facing them alone. 2 weeks after I discovered the affair, I went into premature labor. It started at 10 p.m., sharp pains that woke me from restless sleep. At first, I thought they were Braxton Hicks again, just my body practicing. But these were different, regular, intensifying, accompanied by a wetness that made my heart drop. My water had broken. At 32 weeks, 6 weeks too early. I called Marcus. He didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Panic clawed at my throat as I dialed my neighbor, Mrs. Chun, who'd offer to help if I needed anything. She came immediately, taking Emma with sleepy confusion, promising to keep her safe. I drove myself to the hospital, one hand on the wheel, one hand on my contracting belly, tears streaming down my face. Every few minutes, I tried calling Marcus again. Nothing. 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 At the hospital, nurses rushed me into labor and delivery. The baby was coming too fast, too early. They prepped an operating room in case I needed a C-section. A NICU team was called. Through it all, I kept asking for my husband, kept insisting he was coming, kept believing he wouldn't abandon me for this. At 11:47 p.m., I called him one more time. He answered. Marcus. I gasped between contractions. The baby's coming. I'm at St. Mary's. I'm scared. Please, I need you. There was a pause. Background noise. Then his voice, distracted and cold. I can't right now, Claire. Vanessa needs me. She's having complications. I'll come when I can. I heard it then. Her moan. His whispered response. Not now, babe. She'll hear you. He hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand as another contraction ripped through me. He'd chosen her. Even now, even during the birth of our child, he'd chosen her. A nurse took my hand. It's okay, honey. We've got you. You're not alone. But I was completely, devastatingly alone. Our daughter, our second daughter, the one I'd planned to name Sophie, was born at 1:23 a.m., weighing 4 pounds, 2 ounces. She was tiny, fragile, whisked immediately to the NICU with tubes and monitors covering her small body. I barely got to touch her before they took her away. Marcus arrived at 4:30 a.m., smelling of hospital soap and Vanessa's perfume. He walked into my recovery room like he hadn't just missed the birth of his child, like he hadn't ignored my desperate calls while I labored alone. How is she? He asked, not meeting my eyes. Alive, I said flatly. No thanks to you. Claire, Vanessa had. I don't care what Vanessa had, I interrupted, my voice a razor. Your daughter was being born. Your wife needed you. And you chose your mistress. He had the audacity to look wounded. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. We stared at each other across the sterile hospital room, and I saw the truth in his face. He didn't love me anymore. Maybe he never had, not the way I'd loved him. I'd been convenient, suitable, good enough, until something better came along. I want you out of the house by the time I bring Sophie home, I said. Claire! Get out, Marcus. Get out and don't come back unless it's to see your daughters. I'm done. He left. And for the first time since I discovered his affair, I felt something other than pain. I felt anger. Cold, clarifying anger that burned away the shock and grief and left something harder in its place. Whole world. The bath products I'd bought because some magazine said they'd keep me attractive for my husband during pregnancy. All of it was a lie. I don't know how long I sat there before I heard Emma knocking softly. Mommy, are you okay? I wiped my face, tried to compose myself. I'm fine, baby. Just give me a minute. But I wasn't fine, and I wouldn't be for a very long time. The next 3 days passed in a fog of shock and disbelief. Marcus didn't come home that first night, or the second, or the third. He sent a text, just a text, saying he was staying at a hotel while we figured things out. His lawyer contacted me on day 4. The divorce papers arrived by courier, clinical and cold. Marcus wanted joint custody of Emma, shared assets, and a clean split. The settlement was generous by most standards, the house, child support, alimony for 2 years, but it felt like blood money. Payment for the years I'd wasted, the dreams I'd abandoned, the humiliation of being replaced. I hired my own lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, who listened to my story with grim understanding. We can fight this, she said. Infidelity, especially during pregnancy, plays well to judges. We can argue for more. But I wasn't thinking about money. I was thinking about the baby growing inside me, the one who would be born into this chaos. I was thinking about Emma, who'd started having nightmares about her family splitting apart. I was thinking about the months ahead, facing them alone. 2 weeks after I discovered the affair, I went into premature labor. It started at 10 p.m., sharp pains that woke me from restless sleep. At first, I thought they were Braxton Hicks again, just my body practicing. But these were different, regular, intensifying, accompanied by a wetness that made my heart drop. My water had broken. At 32 weeks, 6 weeks too early. I called Marcus. He didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Panic clawed at my throat as I dialed my neighbor, Mrs. Chun, who'd offer to help if I needed anything. She came immediately, taking Emma with sleepy confusion, promising to keep her safe. I drove myself to the hospital, one hand on the wheel, one hand on my contracting belly, tears streaming down my face. Every few minutes, I tried calling Marcus again. Nothing. 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 At the hospital, nurses rushed me into labor and delivery. The baby was coming too fast, too early. They prepped an operating room in case I needed a C-section. A NICU team was called. Through it all, I kept asking for my husband, kept insisting he was coming, kept believing he wouldn't abandon me for this. At 11:47 p.m., I called him one more time. He answered. Marcus. I gasped between contractions. The baby's coming. I'm at St. Mary's. I'm scared. Please, I need you. There was a pause. Background noise. Then his voice, distracted and cold. I can't right now, Claire. Vanessa needs me. She's having complications. I'll come when I can. I heard it then. Her moan. His whispered response. Not now, babe. She'll hear you. He hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand as another contraction ripped through me. He'd chosen her. Even now, even during the birth of our child, he'd chosen her. A nurse took my hand. It's okay, honey. We've got you. You're not alone. But I was completely, devastatingly alone. Our daughter, our second daughter, the one I'd planned to name Sophie, was born at 1:23 a.m., weighing 4 pounds, 2 ounces. She was tiny, fragile, whisked immediately to the NICU with tubes and monitors covering her small body. I barely got to touch her before they took her away. Marcus arrived at 4:30 a.m., smelling of hospital soap and Vanessa's perfume. He walked into my recovery room like he hadn't just missed the birth of his child, like he hadn't ignored my desperate calls while I labored alone. How is she? He asked, not meeting my eyes. Alive, I said flatly. No thanks to you. Claire, Vanessa had. I don't care what Vanessa had, I interrupted, my voice a razor. Your daughter was being born. Your wife needed you. And you chose your mistress. He had the audacity to look wounded. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. We stared at each other across the sterile hospital room, and I saw the truth in his face. He didn't love me anymore. Maybe he never had, not the way I'd loved him. I'd been convenient, suitable, good enough, until something better came along. I want you out of the house by the time I bring Sophie home, I said. Claire! Get out, Marcus. Get out and don't come back, unless it's to see your daughters. I'm done. He left. And for the first time since I discovered his affair, I felt something other than pain. I felt anger. Cold, clarifying anger that burned away the shock and grief and left something harder in its. Sophie came home on a cold November afternoon, 7 weeks old and finally strong enough to breathe on her own. I converted Emma's playroom into a nursery, filling it with soft colors and careful warmth. Emma helped me arrange the stuffed animals, her face serious with the importance of being a big sister. Marcus had moved out as requested, taking his clothes and personal items, but leaving the furniture, the shared possessions, the ghost of our marriage. I walked through the empty house and felt nothing. The man I'd loved was gone, if he'd ever really existed, and what remained was just a legal obstacle to overcome. The divorce proceedings crawled forward with agonizing slowness. Marcus's lawyer argued for joint custody, standard visitation, a civilized dissolution of the marriage. Patricia countered with evidence of his affair, his abandonment during my premature labor, his pattern of choosing Vanessa over his family. But the real bombshell came from an unexpected source, Emma. 3 months after Sophie came home, on a regular afternoon that seemed like any other, Emma came to me with my phone in her small hands. Mommy, she said, her voice serious, I made a video for you. A video? I was folding laundry, Sophie asleep in her bassinet nearby. What kind of video, sweetheart? About Daddy. About what he did. I set down the laundry, my full attention on my daughter. Show me. She opened a video file on my phone. The footage was shaky, clearly filmed by a 7-year-old, but the audio was crystal clear. It was from the day we discovered Marcus and Vanessa in his office. Emma had been recording on my phone, something I hadn't noticed in the shock of that moment. The video captured everything. Marcus's confession, Vanessa's pregnancy announcement, his cruel words about my failures as a wife, and then something I hadn't heard that day, something that must have been said after I'd taken Emma into the hallway to comfort her. Marcus's voice, clear and cold. The timing is perfect. Once Claire delivers, I'll file for divorce. By the time the baby's 6 months old, Vanessa and I can get married. No one will care about the overlap. They'll just see a man who made a difficult choice. Vanessa's response, what about Emma? I'll see her on weekends. Claire's not going to fight me on custody. She's too weak, too concerned about appearances. She'll take whatever settlement I offer just to avoid the drama. The recording cut off there. I looked at my daughter, this small person who'd thought to preserve evidence when I'd been too devastated to think clearly. Emma, when did you record this? That day at Daddy's office, she said. I was scared. I thought if I recorded it, maybe you could make him stop. Tears burned my eyes. You were very brave, sweetheart. Can it help? Can it make him sorry? I pulled her close, this fierce little girl who'd been trying to protect our family with the only tools she had. Yes, baby. It can help. It can help a lot. That evening, after Emma was asleep and Sophie was fed and settled, I called Patricia. I have something new, I said. Something that changes everything. When I played her the recording, the silence on the other end was heavy with implication. Claire, Patricia said finally, her voice controlled but excited. This is exactly what we need. His own words, admitting to planning the timeline of the affair around your pregnancy, admitting to assumptions about your weakness, and his ability to manipulate the divorce. This is devastating. I want to use it in court, I said. I want everyone to hear it. The judge will allow it as evidence, absolutely. But Claire, once you play this, there's no going back. Marcus will know exactly how calculated and cold he appeared. He'll fight harder, meaner. Let him fight, I said, thinking of Sophie's first month in the NICU, of the nights I'd spent alone and terrified. I'm done being afraid of him. The court date was set for January, a bright winter morning when the city was covered in fresh snow that made everything look clean and new. Marcus arrived with his lawyer, confident and composed in his expensive suit. Vanessa sat in the gallery, her baby, their baby, with a nanny nearby. I arrived with Patricia, Emma, and Sophie in a carrier against my chest. I dressed carefully that morning, not expensive or flashy, just a simple dress that showed I was still pregnant soft, still recovering, still visibly the woman who'd been abandoned. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a reputation for fairness, called the court to order. Marcus's lawyer presented his case first. It was polished, professional, painting Marcus as a man who'd made difficult choices, who wanted what was best for his children, who was ready to move forward responsibly into this new chapter of his life. Then it was our turn. Patricia stood, her voice clear and confident. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence that contradicts the narrative of a man making responsible choices. She started with the security footage from our home. The judge watched in silence as Marcus and Vanessa appeared on screen, intimate and careless in the space I'd created for our family. The timestamps showed dates spanning months, overlapping with my pregnancy, proving the systematic nature of the affair. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His lawyer objected, arguing the footage was prejudicial, but the judge overruled it. This speaks to character and credibility, she said. Continue. Next came the hospital records. Patricia laid out the timeline with surgical precision. My admission for premature labor, the records of my calls to Marcus's phone, the timestamp of Sophie's birth, and Marcus's arrival 4 hours later. Mr. Harrison chose to stay with his mistress, while his wife delivered their child alone and prematurely, Patricia said. This isn't a man making difficult choices. This is a man making selfish ones. And then, finally, Patricia looked at me. Mrs. Harrison has one more piece of evidence to present, Your Honor. With the court's permission, her daughter Emma would like to share something. The judge's eyebrows rose. How old is the child? 7, Your Honor. But what she has to present is significant. Marcus's lawyer objected strenuously, arguing that a child shouldn't be put in the middle of divorce proceedings, but the judge was curious. I'll allow it, she said. Briefly, Emma walked to the front of the courtroom, her small hand clutching the USB drive that held the recording. She looked tiny before the judge's bench, but her voice was steady when she spoke. Your Honor, I recorded this the day I found out about my dad and that lady. I wanted to help my mom. The bailiff loaded the video. The courtroom fell silent as Marcus's voice filled the space, admitting his calculated plans, dismissing me as weak, strategizing about the divorce timeline like it was just another case to win. When it finished, the silence was absolute. I watched Marcus's face drain of color. I watched Vanessa shift uncomfortably in her seat. I watched the judge's expression harden into something carved from stone. Mr. Harrison, the judge said, her voice cutting through the quiet, do you deny that this is your voice? Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, looked at his lawyer, who seemed at a loss for words. No, Your Honor, he finally said. That's my voice. But it was taken out of context. Context, the judge interrupted, would not improve what I just heard. You planned your affair around your wife's pregnancy. You abandoned her during a medical emergency. You assumed she would be too weak to fight back. Is that the kind of father you want to be to these children? Your Honor, I've heard enough. She shuffled papers, her movements sharp with controlled anger. Here's what's going to happen. Mrs. Harrison will have full physical custody of both children. Mr. Harrison will have supervised visitation on weekends, supervised until such time as he demonstrates consistent, responsible parenting. Child support will be calculated based on Mr. Harrison's full income, including bonuses and partnership distributions. And Mr. Harrison will pay Mrs. Harrison's legal fees in full. Marcus stood abruptly. That's not fair. Sit down, Mr. Harrison. The judge's voice cracked like a whip. You want to discuss fairness? Let's discuss the fairness of abandoning your pregnant wife. Let's discuss the fairness of bringing your mistress into the family home. You made your choices. Now you live with the consequences. Patricia squeezed my hand under the table. Emma, sitting in the gallery with a friend who'd been watching Sophie, gave me a small, triumphant smile. For the first time in months, I felt something like victory. But as I walked out of that courtroom, Sophie in my arms and Emma at my side, I knew this wasn't just about winning. It was about showing my daughters that strength wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about surviving it and coming out whole on the other side. Marcus called that night, his voice tight with fury. You turned our daughter against me. No, I said calmly. You did that yourself. Emma just showed everyone the truth. This isn't over, Claire. Yes, Marcus. It is. You just haven't accepted it yet. I hung up and blocked his number, leaving only Patricia's contact open for necessary communication. The house felt different that night. Not empty. It had been empty since Marcus left. But clean. Like I'd swept away years of lies and what remained was just truth, raw and real. The weeks following the court hearing settled into a strange new rhythm. Marcus picked up Emma every other weekend for supervised visits at a neutral location, a family center with monitors and counselors present. He hated it, the humiliation of being watched like he couldn't be trusted with his own daughter. Good. He deserved every moment of discomfort. Sophie was thriving now, gaining weight, and hitting her developmental milestones despite her premature start. At 4 months old, she smiled and cooed and grabbed at everything within reach. Emma doted on her constantly, singing to her, helping with feedings, being the protective big sister I'd always hoped she'd be. I was healing too, slowly. The physical recovery from childbirth was complete, but the emotional wounds were deeper, taking longer to close. Some mornings I woke up and forgot, just for a moment, that my marriage was over. Then reality would crash back in, heavy and final. But I was managing. I'd started working again, taking freelance architecture projects from home. Small jobs at first, residential renovations, minor commercial updates, but it felt good to use my brain for something other than divorce strategy and childcare logistics. My designs were sharp, creative, fueled by all the anger I'd been channeling into something productive. Money was tight but manageable. Marcus's child support covered the essentials, and my freelance work supplemented enough to keep us comfortable. The house was paid off, a wedding gift from my parents, which Marcus had never been able to claim in the divorce. I'd been smart about that, at least, keeping the deed in my name alone. Everything seemed to be stabilizing. Then Vanessa showed up at my door. It was a Tuesday morning in February. Sophie was napping, Emma was at school, and I was working on a kitchen design for a client when the doorbell rang. I opened it without thinking, expecting a delivery. Instead, I found Vanessa on my porch, her baby bundled in her arms, her face pale and drawn. I'm sorry to just show up, she said quickly, before I could slam the door. But I need to talk to you. Please. It's important. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to send her away, to protect my space from the woman who'd helped destroy my marriage. But something in her expression stopped me. She looked terrified. You have 5 minutes, I said coldly, not inviting her inside. She shifted the baby, a boy I could see now, with Marcus's dark hair, and took a shaky breath. Marcus is planning something bad. I think he's going to try to take Sophie. My blood went cold. What are you talking about? He's furious about the custody arrangement. He thinks you manipulated the judge, that you poisoned Emma against him. He's been talking to his lawyer about challenging the ruling, claiming you're an unfit mother because of Sophie's premature birth. That's insane. The premature birth was stress-induced because of what he did. I know, Vanessa interrupted. I know that. But Marcus doesn't care about logic. He just wants to hurt you. And he's been researching ways to prove maternal neglect, medical complications that could be blamed on you, anything to build a case. I stared at her, trying to process this. Why are you telling me this? You're supposed to be on his side. Her laugh was bitter, broken. I thought I was. I thought we were building a life together, that he loved me, that we were a family. She looked down at her baby. But you were right. What you said that day in his office, he's doing it to me too. What do you mean? He's cheating on me. The words came out flat, exhausted. With his new paralegal. 23 years old, blonde, eager to please. I found the messages last week. Same pattern as with us. Late nights, unexplained absences. Lies that don't quite add up. The irony was almost funny. Almost. So you thought you'd warn me out of what? Solidarity. Guilt. Both, she admitted. And because your daughters don't deserve to be used as weapons in whatever sick game Marcus is playing. I helped break up your family, Claire. I can't undo that. But maybe I can help you protect what's left. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to scream at her that this was exactly what she deserved, that karma was real and brutal. But looking at her standing on my porch with her baby, abandoned by the same man who'd abandoned me, I felt something unexpected. Pity. Come inside, I said finally. It's cold. She followed me into the living room, the space where the security cameras had caught her with Marcus months ago. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I made tea, something to do with my hands, while she settled on the couch with her baby. His name is Owen, she said quietly, watching me. He's 3 months old. Marcus has barely held him. Too busy with work, he says. Too stressed about the divorce and custody battle. I brought the tea over and sat across from her, maintaining distance. Tell me everything about his plan. Vanessa pulled out her phone, scrolling through screenshots. He's been meeting with a private investigator. They're planning to document everything you do, where you go, who you see, how you care for the kids. They're looking for anything they can twist into negligence. Late pickups from school. Sophie crying too long before you respond. Emma looking tired or upset. That's normal parenting, I said, anger rising. Kids cry. Kids get tired. That doesn't make me negligent. I know. But Marcus doesn't need truth. He just needs something that looks bad in court. He's also planning to subpoena Sophie's NICU records to argue that her premature birth was due to your health issues, not his actions. The audacity was staggering. He'd abandoned me during labor, and now he wanted to use that trauma against me. What else? He's been talking about filing for primary custody of Emma. His lawyer thinks they can argue that since Emma is older and in school, she needs stability, and his new apartment near her school would provide that better than your house. Emma doesn't want to live with him. She told the judge that. Marcus thinks he can change her mind. He's planning to take her on a trip during spring break, somewhere expensive and fun. Disneyland, maybe. He thinks if he showers her with attention and gifts, she'll prefer living with him. I thought of Emma's fierce loyalty, her protective instincts towards Sophie and me. Marcus was delusional if he thought a vacation could undo what he'd broken. But even knowing that, fear crept up my spine. Marcus had money, resources, connections. What if he found a sympathetic judge? What if his plan worked? Why does he want custody so badly? I asked. He barely sees them now. Vanessa's expression darkened. Control. He can't stand that you won, that you exposed him, that he looks like the bad guy. Taking the kids would be his ultimate revenge. Plus, if he has custody, his child support payments drop dramatically. Of course. Money and ego, Marcus's two primary motivations. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. I have documentation of all of this, Vanessa continued, pulling up more screenshots. Text messages where he discusses strategy with his lawyer. Emails to the private investigator. Even a recording from last week where he was talking to a friend about his plans. She forwarded everything to my phone. The evidence was damning. Marcus plotting against me, strategizing ways to weaponize our children, treating custody like just another case to win. Why are you really doing this? I asked again. You could have just walked away, dealt with your own situation. Why risk helping me? Vanessa was quiet for a long moment, looking down at her baby. Because I'm terrified I'm next. If Marcus can discard you, his wife of 9 years, the mother of his children, then what am I? What's owing to him, other than proof of his virility and poor judgment? She looked up, tears in her eyes. And because what I did was wrong. I knew he was married. I knew you were pregnant. I told myself it was love, that we had something special, that I was different. But I was just the next woman in line. And now there's already another one after me. I didn't forgive her. Forgiveness would take years, maybe forever. But I understood the particular hell of realizing the man you loved was a monster wearing a charming mask. What are you going to do? I asked. About Marcus, about your situation? I'm leaving him, taking Owen, and moving back to my parents' house in Oregon. I already gave notice at the firm. I can't keep working there, seeing him every day, pretending everything's fine. She stood, adjusting Owen in her arms. I just wanted to warn you first. Give you time to prepare. After she left, I sat in the quiet living room and processed everything she told me. Marcus was planning an attack, and I needed to be ready. More than ready, I needed to go on the offensive. I called Patricia immediately. We need to file a motion to modify the custody arrangement, I said without preamble. Marcus is planning to fight for primary custody. I have evidence of his strategy. Send it to me now, Patricia said, all business. We'll review and file by end of week. But Claire, if we escalate this, Marcus is going to come at you with everything he has. It's going to get ugly. It's already ugly, I replied. I'm just making sure I win. The custody battle escalated quickly after that. Patricia filed our motion, including all of Vanessa's evidence. Marcus's lawyer countered with their own motion, complete with the private investigator surveillance reports. They had photos of me, looking exhausted, picking Emma up from school, 20 minutes late. Videos of Sophie crying in her car seat for a full minute before I could pull over safely to check on her. A report claiming Emma looked withdrawn and unhappy during a playground visit. It was invasive, manipulative, and infuriating. They'd been watching us for weeks, documenting normal parenting moments and framing them as neglect. But I had something better. I had Marcus's own words, planning this attack, admitting his motivations. And I had a strategy of my own. We're going to request a custody evaluation, Patricia explained during one of our marathon planning sessions. An independent psychologist will assess both households, interview the kids, review the evidence, and make recommendations to the court. Will that help us? If the evaluator is competent, yes. Emma's preference will carry weight at her age. Sophie's premature birth and NICU stay will be examined in context. The evaluator will see that Marcus's abandonment caused the stress that led to early labor. And Marcus's pattern of behavior, his current affair, his manipulation tactics, all of that paints a picture of a man who prioritizes himself over his children. The evaluation process took 2 months. 2 months of interviews, home visits, psychological assessments, and invasive questions about every aspect of our lives. Emma was questioned separately, asked about her feelings toward both parents, her living situations, her preferences. She was brave through all of it, my fierce little girl. When the psychologist asked if she wanted to spend more time with her father, she said clearly, "I love my dad, but I don't trust him anymore. He made my mom cry. He left when the baby was being born. I want to stay with my mom." The psychologist also interviewed Marcus, Vanessa, before she left for Oregon, and even some of Marcus's colleagues. The picture that emerged was consistent. A narcissistic, controlling man who valued winning over relationships, who saw his children as possessions rather than people, who would say or do anything to get what he wanted. During this time, I focused on being the best mother I could be. I was never late for pickup again. I kept meticulous records of Sophie's feedings, sleep schedules, and developmental progress. I enrolled Emma in activities she loved: art class, soccer, swimming. I made our home warm and stable and full of laughter. and I documented everything. Every missed visit from Marcus. Every phone call where he spoke to Emma for 3 minutes before claiming he had to go. Every time he promised to see Sophie and then canceled last minute. I was building my own case, brick by brick. The psychologist's report arrived in late April, delivered to both legal teams simultaneously. Patricia called me the moment she finished reading it. "Claire, it's good. Really good. The evaluator recommends you maintain primary physical custody, with Marcus's visitation remaining supervised until he completes a parenting course and demonstrates consistent involvement." I closed my eyes, relief washing over me. What about his claims of neglect? Dismissed entirely. The evaluator noted that all the incidents Marcus's investigator documented were within normal parenting parameters. She also noted that the surveillance itself was concerning and potentially traumatizing to the children if discovered. And the premature birth, cited as a direct result of the emotional distress caused by Marcus's affair and abandonment. The evaluator had strong words about his failure to support you during a medical crisis. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe properly. We were winning. Not just in court, but in truth. The objective evaluation confirmed what I'd known all along. I was a good mother, and Marcus was a selfish, manipulative man who didn't deserve primary custody of our children. But Marcus wasn't done fighting. His counterattack came in the form of a new motion, filed by a new lawyer, the third he'd hired since the divorce began. This one was younger, aggressive, with a reputation for scorched earth tactics. The motion claimed that I had coached Emma to say negative things about Marcus, that I was engaging in parental alienation, that I was using the children as weapons against him. They requested an emergency hearing to address my ongoing psychological manipulation of the children. It was absurd. It was also terrifying, because parental alienation claims, even baseless ones, could sway judges who worried about protecting fathers' rights. Patricia was livid when she read the filing. "This is desperate," she said. "He's throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. But we need to take it seriously. If the judge even considers the alienation argument, it could complicate things." What do? We prove that Emma's feelings are her own, based on Marcus's actions, not your influence. We show the pattern of his behavior, the abandonment, the affairs, the prioritization of his own interests over the children's needs. And we let Emma speak for herself if necessary. The emergency hearing was scheduled for early May, just a week away. I spent that week preparing Emma, gently, carefully, making sure she understood that she might need to talk to the judge again, that she should just tell the truth about her feelings. "I'm not scared, Mommy," she said, with heartbreaking certainty. "I know what Daddy did. I remember. Nobody told me to feel sad about it, I just do." The hearing was held in the same courtroom where we'd had our initial victory. Same judge, same layout, but the atmosphere was different now. Heavier, more contentious. Marcus arrived with his new lawyer and a parade of character witnesses, colleagues from his firm, friends from college, his own parents. They were prepared to testify that Marcus was a devoted father, that I was vindictive and manipulative, that everything that had gone wrong was my fault for not being understanding enough about his relationship mistakes. I had Patricia, the psychologist's report, and the truth. Marcus's lawyer went first, painting me as a bitter ex-wife who couldn't accept that her marriage had ended, who turned her children against their father out of spite. He called Marcus's mother to the stand first. "My son loves those girls more than anything," she said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "He's devastated that he can't see them more. Claire has always been controlling, always needed everything her way. She's punishing him for falling in love with someone else." I sat still, my hands folded on the table, refusing to react. Patricia had coached me. "Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you angry or upset. Stay calm, stay composed, stay strong." Next came Marcus's college roommate, who testified that Marcus had always been a great guy, super responsible, someone who takes care of people. He conveniently forgot to mention that Marcus had cheated on 2 girlfriends during college, a pattern I'd only learned about after the divorce. Then Marcus himself took the stand. He was polished, remorseful in all the right places, insistent that he loved his daughters and only wanted what was best for them. "I made mistakes in my marriage," he said, his voice heavy with manufactured emotion. "I take full responsibility for that. But my relationship with Claire has nothing to do with my relationship with my daughters. Emma and Sophie are my world. All I want is the chance to be their father, to be present in their lives without barriers. His lawyer asked him about the custody evaluation. Mr. Harrison, do you believe the evaluation was fair? No, Marcus said firmly. I think the psychologist was biased from the start. She spent twice as much time with Claire as with me. She asked leading questions that made Emma feel like she had to choose sides. The whole process felt predetermined. And do you believe Claire has influenced Emma's feelings toward you? I do. Emma used to love our time together. She'd hug me, tell me she missed me, ask when she could visit. Now she's distant, almost hostile. That change didn't happen naturally. Someone taught her to feel that way. I wanted to scream. Emma had changed because she'd watched him destroy our family, because he'd missed her school events and forgotten her birthday, because he'd proven over and over that his priorities lay elsewhere. But Marcus was rewriting history, making himself the victim of my supposed manipulation. Patricia's cross-examination was surgical. Mr. Harrison, how many of Emma's school events have you attended since the separation? Marcus hesitated. I've been very busy with work. How many? Patricia repeated. 2. But I sent gifts. 2 out of 12 events. And how many times have you called Emma in the past month? I'm not sure of the exact number. According to the phone records we've subpoenaed, you've called 3 times in 5 weeks. Each call lasted less than 5 minutes. Does that sound like a father who's devastated about limited contact? Marcus's composure cracked slightly. I've been dealing with a lot. You've been dealing with your new girlfriend, haven't you? The paralegal at your firm. His lawyer objected, but the damage was done. The judge's expression had shifted, skepticism replacing neutrality. Patricia continued, Mr. Harrison, can you tell the court Sophie's current weight? I'd approximately 15 pounds. She's 19 pounds. Can you tell me what developmental milestones she's hit recently? She's a baby. She eats and sleeps. She's sitting up unassisted, beginning to crawl, and saying mama and dada. All things you'd know if you spent time with her. When was the last time you visited Sophie? Marcus looked at his lawyer helplessly. 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. And before that, a month maybe. So in the past 2 months, you've seen your infant daughter twice. Yet you're claiming Mrs. Harrison is keeping you from being a father. The courtroom was silent except for Patricia's heels clicking as she walked back to our table. She'd made her point devastatingly clear. Marcus's problem wasn't access to his children. It was his complete lack of interest in using the access he already had. Then it was time for our evidence. Patricia called me to the stand first. I spoke calmly about my daily routine with the girls, about Emma's thriving in school and activities, about Sophie's healthy development. I explained that I'd never told Emma what to think about her father. I'd simply supported her feelings, whatever they were. Mrs. Harrison, has Emma ever expressed positive feelings about her father? Yes. She says she loves him. She wishes things were different, that we could be a normal family. She's grieving the loss of what she thought her family was. And do you encourage that grief, or do you support her through it? I support her. I've never said a negative word about Marcus to Emma. I don't need to. She experienced his choices firsthand. Next, Patricia entered Marcus's text messages with his lawyer into evidence, the ones Vanessa had provided, showing Marcus strategizing about how to make Claire look incompetent and find dirt that will stick in court. The judge read them carefully, her expression growing harder with each page. Finally, Patricia called Emma. My daughter walked to the front of the courtroom with her head held high. The judge had approved her testimony, but had made arrangements to make it less intimidating. Emma could sit in a comfortable chair instead of the witness stand, and she could bring a stuffed animal for comfort. She chose the elephant I'd given her the night Sophie was born, the one she'd held during those long NICU visits. The judge spoke to her gently. Emma, do you understand that you're here to answer some questions? Yes, ma'am. And do you promise to tell the truth? Yes, ma'am. The judge smiled slightly at her serious tone. Okay. Can you tell me how you feel about your current living situation with your mom? I love it, Emma said simply. Mom takes good care of me and Sophie. We do fun things together. She helps me with homework and takes me to my activities. She makes me feel safe. How do you feel when you visit your father? Emma's face clouded. Sad mostly. He asks me questions about Mom, like he's trying to find out stuff to use against her. He promises to take me places and then cancels. And he doesn't really want to know about me, like what I'm learning in school or what I drew in art class. He just wants me to say I want to live with him. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Has your mother ever told you what to say about your father? The judge asked. No. She says I should love him because he's my dad. But I can't make myself feel things I don't feel. I'm sad about what happened. I'm sad he made Mom cry, and that he wasn't there when Sophie was born. Mom didn't tell me to be sad about those things. I just am. The judge nodded slowly. Emma, if you could choose, where would you want to live? With my mom. I want to visit Dad sometimes, but I want to live with Mom and Sophie. Why? Emma looked directly at Marcus, her 7-year-old gaze holding more wisdom than it should. Because Mom shows up. Dad just makes promises. The silence that followed was profound. Even Marcus's lawyer looked uncomfortable. After Emma was dismissed, hugged by me as she passed, ignored by her father, the judge called for a short recess. When we reconvened, her decision was swift. I've heard testimony from both parties and reviewed extensive evidence. The claims of parental alienation are not supported by the facts. Emma's feelings toward her father are a natural consequence of his actions, not the result of manipulation by Mrs. Harrison. The custody evaluation will stand. Mrs. Harrison retains primary physical custody. Mr. Harrison's visitation will remain supervised until he demonstrates consistent, meaningful engagement with both children over a period of no less than 6 months. This court is adjourned. Marcus stood abruptly, his face flushed with rage. This is ridiculous. Mr. Harrison, the judge said sharply. You may file an appeal if you wish, but I suggest you spend less time fighting for custody in court and more time earning it through your actions. Your children are watching. Act accordingly. He stormed out, his lawyer trailing behind, already talking about appeal strategies. I gathered Emma and Sophie, holding them both close. Patricia squeezed my shoulder. You did it. He's got nothing left to fight with. But I knew better. Men like Marcus always had one more move, one more manipulation, one more way to try to win. I just didn't know yet how far he was willing to go. The appeal Marcus filed was rejected within 3 weeks. The appellate court found no grounds to overturn the custody decision, noting that the trial judge had acted appropriately and that all evidence supported her ruling. After that defeat, Marcus seemed to give up on the legal route. His supervised visits became sporadic. He'd show up for one, then miss the next 2. When he did come, he spent most of the time on his phone, barely engaging with Emma and holding Sophie awkwardly, like she was a stranger's baby he'd been forced to babysit. Emma noticed. She started requesting not to go to visits, saying they made her feel weird and sad. I documented each request, each missed visit, each disengaged phone call, building a file in case Marcus tried another custody grab. But his next attack came from a direction I didn't expect. It was late June, almost a year since I discovered the affair. Sophie was 9 months old, crawling everywhere and pulling herself up on furniture. Emma had finished 2nd grade with perfect attendance and excellent grades. We'd survived a full year of single parenthood, and I was starting to believe we might actually be okay. Then the lawsuit arrived. Marcus was suing me for defamation and emotional distress, claiming that I had maliciously and intentionally destroyed his reputation and career through false allegations and manipulated court testimony. He was seeking $2 million in damages. I stared at the legal papers in disbelief. He can't be serious. Patricia's voice on the phone was grim. He's very serious, and he's filed this in civil court, separate from the family court proceedings. He's claiming that your divorce testimony and Emma's statements damaged his professional reputation, that he's lost clients and partnership opportunities because of the false narrative you created. Nothing I said was false. Everything was documented. I know. This is a SLAPP suit, strategic lawsuit against public participation. He's trying to punish you for speaking the truth, to drain your resources and energy so you'll be too exhausted to keep fighting. The good news is that these suits rarely succeed, especially when the statements were made in court under oath. The bad news is that defending against it will be expensive and time-consuming. How expensive? Patricia hesitated. Could run $50,000 or more if it goes to trial. We can file a motion to dismiss, argue that statements made in court proceedings are privileged, but Marcus has clearly hired a lawyer who knows how to drag this out. I felt the walls closing in. I'd already spent tens of thousands on the divorce and custody battle. My freelance income was good, but not unlimited. Marcus, with his partnership income and no real childcare expenses, had endless resources to throw at destroying me. This was what he wanted, to break me financially, to make me regret ever fighting back, to prove that challenging him came with a price I couldn't afford to pay. But he'd miscalculated. Because fighting him had taught me something valuable. I was stronger than I'd ever known, and I wasn't fighting alone. I called a meeting with Patricia, my parents, and a friend from college who'd become a successful journalist. Together, we strategized. The defamation suit won't hold up, Patricia confirmed. But we need to make it costly for Marcus to pursue. We file a motion to dismiss and simultaneously go public with the full story. Public? I asked. Like media? My journalist friend, Rebecca, nodded. Your story is newsworthy, Claire. Successful lawyer abandons pregnant wife during premature labor, fights for custody while barely seeing his kids, now sues ex-wife. For telling the truth about his behavior. It's the kind of story that gets attention. And public pressure can make these lawsuits disappear fast. But Emma and Sophie, I don't want them exposed. We keep them anonymous. We focus on the facts of Marcus's behavior and the misuse of the legal system to silence victims. We don't need to identify the children to make the point. It was risky. Going public meant opening our lives to scrutiny, inviting judgment and commentary. But staying silent meant letting Marcus drain me dry, financially and emotionally, until I had nothing left to fight with. Do it, I said. Tell the story. Rebecca worked fast. Within a week, a major news outlet published a feature article titled, "When the Legal System Becomes a Weapon," how one lawyer uses litigation to punish his ex-wife for telling the truth. The article laid out everything. Marcus's affair during my pregnancy, his abandonment during Sophie's premature birth, the custody battle, and now the defamation lawsuit. Rebecca had interviewed the family court psychologist who confirmed the findings without violating confidentiality, reviewed public court records, and spoken to Vanessa, who'd agreed to go on record about Marcus's pattern of behavior. The story went viral. Within 24 hours, it had been shared tens of thousands of times. Commenters expressed outrage at Marcus's actions. Several legal ethics experts weighed in, noting that using litigation to silence criticism could potentially violate professional conduct rules. A victims' advocacy group reached out, offering to help with my legal defense fund. Marcus's law firm started getting calls. Angry calls from clients who didn't want to be represented by a lawyer who abandoned his pregnant wife. Concerned calls from partners who worried about the firm's reputation. Marcus's name became toxic overnight. 3 days after the article published, his defamation lawsuit was quietly withdrawn. His lawyer released a brief statement saying Marcus had decided to focus on moving forward rather than dwelling on the past. Translation: he'd lost and he knew it. But I wasn't satisfied with just surviving his attacks. I wanted to make sure he could never come at me, or anyone else, like this again. With Patricia's help, I filed a complaint with the state bar, documenting Marcus's use of the legal system as a weapon of harassment. I included all the evidence: the frivolous defamation suit, his coaching of witnesses, his attempts to manipulate court processes, his pattern of using his legal knowledge to intimidate and control. The bar investigation would take months, possibly over a year. But even the existence of the complaint was significant. It was now part of Marcus's permanent professional record, something that would come up in background checks, partnership considerations, and client due diligence. His reputation, the thing he'd valued above our family, was permanently damaged. Summer turned to fall. Emma started 3rd grade. Sophie took her first steps. My freelance business grew steadily as word spread about my designs. Clients appreciated working with someone who understood how to create spaces that felt safe and whole, someone who'd rebuilt her own life from ruins. Marcus's visits became even more sporadic. By October, he was seeing the girls maybe once a month, always supervised, always brief. Emma stopped asking about him. Sophie didn't recognize him, crying when he tried to hold her. The bar investigation was progressing. I'd been interviewed twice, asked to provide detailed accounts of Marcus's behavior. Other people had come forward too. Former clients who felt bullied, a paralegal who'd been harassed, even Vanessa, who documented his controlling behavior during their relationship. A pattern was emerging, clear and damning. Marcus Harrison wasn't just a bad husband and father. He was a lawyer who abused his position, who used his knowledge of the law to intimidate and harm rather than to seek justice. In November, just before Thanksgiving, I received a call from the bar investigator. "Mrs. Harrison, I wanted to let you know that we've completed our review. The disciplinary committee will be making their decision next month, but I thought you should know that we're recommending significant sanctions." "What kind of sanctions?" "That's up to the committee, but given the severity and pattern of misconduct, we're recommending a minimum of a 6-month suspension, potentially longer, along with mandatory ethics training and supervised practice upon return." 6 months without his license meant 6 months without income from his law practice. It meant his partnership at the firm was likely over. They couldn't carry a suspended partner. It meant public professional humiliation, the one thing Marcus feared more than anything. It meant justice. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady. "Thank you for taking this seriously. Mrs. Harrison, we take all complaints seriously, but this one was particularly egregious. The legal profession exists to serve justice, not to be weaponized against vulnerable people. What Mr. Harrison did violates everything we're supposed to stand for." After I hung up, I sat in the quiet house, Sophie napping, Emma at school, and felt something shift inside me. For a year, I'd been fighting, surviving, protecting, always reactive, always defending, always bracing for the next attack. But now, finally, I wasn't just surviving. I was winning. Not just in court, not just in custody, but in the larger battle for dignity, truth, and accountability. Marcus had tried to destroy me. Instead, I'd exposed him. And the system, flawed as it was, had finally responded. The bar committee's decision came down 2 weeks before Christmas. Marcus Harrison was suspended from practicing law for 1 year. He was required to complete 100 hours of ethics training, undergo psychological evaluation, and submit to supervised practice for 2 years following his reinstatement. The decision was public record. The legal community knew. His firm, unable to keep a suspended partner on staff, quietly announced his departure. Marcus called me that night, the first time we'd spoken directly in months. "Are you happy now?" he demanded, his voice raw with rage. "You've destroyed my career, taken my children, ruined my life. Is this what you wanted?" I took a slow breath, looking at Sophie sleeping peacefully in her crib. "I wanted the truth to matter. I wanted you to face consequences for your actions. I wanted my daughters to grow up knowing that cruelty doesn't go unpunished." "You're vindictive, Claire. Bitter and vindictive." "No, Marcus. I'm just done letting you get away with hurting people. You did this to yourself. Every single bit of it. You just can't accept that your actions have consequences. I'll appeal the bar decision. I'll fight this. You do that. Keep fighting. Keep spending your money on lawyers and appeals. Meanwhile, I'll be here raising our daughters, building my business, and living the life you tried to take from me." I hung up before he could respond. Emma came into the room, drawn by the raised voices. "Was that Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Is he mad?" I pulled her close. "He's facing consequences for his choices. That's making him uncomfortable. But that's not our problem anymore." She nodded against my shoulder, understanding more than a 3rd grader should have to. "Good," she said fiercely. "I'm glad he's uncomfortable. He should be. My fierce, protective daughter. She'd been forced to grow up too fast, to understand betrayal and justice at an age when she should have been focused on homework and playdates. But she was also stronger for it, more aware, less likely to accept mistreatment from anyone. That night, after both girls were asleep, I opened my laptop and looked at the messages that had poured in since Rebecca's article had published. Hundreds of women sharing their own stories of betrayal, abandonment, legal abuse, thanking me for speaking up, asking for advice, looking for hope that they could survive what I'd survived. I started responding, one by one, offering encouragement, sharing resources, reminding them that they were stronger than they knew. And I realized that what Marcus had meant to break me had actually built me into someone new. Someone who understood her own strength. Someone who refused to be silent. Someone who would fight not just for herself, but for every woman who'd been told to accept betrayal quietly, to keep the peace, to protect a man's reputation at the cost of her own dignity. The year from hell had transformed me, and I was just getting started. 2 years later, I stood in my newly opened architecture firm's bright office space, watching the sun paint golden light across the drafting tables. The business had grown beyond my wildest expectations, from freelance projects at my kitchen table to a team of 5 talented designers and a waiting list of clients. Emma was thriving in 5th grade, confident and outspoken, president of her student council. Sophie was a joyful 2-year-old who filled our home with laughter and chaos. We'd built a life that felt whole, complete without the man who'd tried to destroy us. Marcus's year-long suspension had ended, but his career never recovered. The firm that dismissed him was the most prestigious in the city. No other reputable practice would touch him after the bar sanctions. He'd opened a small solo office, taking cases no one else wanted, struggling to rebuild what he demolished through his own cruelty. His visitation rights remained supervised. He rarely used them. The last time Emma had seen him was 3 months ago. He'd canceled the 4 visits since, always with vague excuses about work or prior commitments. Sophie didn't know him at all anymore. Then, one Friday afternoon in March, my phone rang. Marcus's number. Claire. His voice was different, smaller, defeated. I need to talk to you. About what? About everything. About the girls. About what I've lost. A pause. I'm getting help. Real help. Therapy. Support groups. I know it's too late to fix what I broke, but I want to try to be better. For Emma and Sophie, if not for you. I listened. Silent. Skeptical. How many times had he promised change before? I'm not asking for forgiveness, he continued. I don't deserve it. But I'm asking if, maybe in a few months, if my therapist agrees I'm making progress, if Emma would be willing to see me without supervision. Just coffee or the park. Something small. That's Emma's choice, I said carefully. If she wants to see you, and if your therapist confirms you're genuinely working on yourself, we can discuss it. But Marcus, if you hurt her again, if you make promises you don't keep, if you use this as another manipulation. I won't. I swear, Claire. I've lost everything that mattered. I finally understand that. I didn't believe in redemption arcs for men like Marcus, but I believed in giving Emma the choice to have a relationship with her father if she wanted one, on her terms, protected and safe. Send me your therapist's contact information. I'll verify you're actually in treatment. Then we'll see. After I hung up, I stood at my office window, looking out at the city that had witnessed my destruction and rebuilding. Marcus's contrition felt too late, too convenient. But it didn't matter anymore. His opinion of me, his attempts at reconciliation, his guilt, none of it had power over my life. I'd already won. Not by destroying him, though I'd certainly contributed to his professional downfall. I'd won by surviving, by protecting my daughters, by building something beautiful from the wreckage he'd left behind. That evening, I picked up the girls and took them to our favorite park. Emma pushed Sophie on the swings while I watched from a bench, my heart full of fierce protective love. Mommy! Sophie called, her chubby hands gripping the chains. Higher! Emma laughed, pushing her sister with careful strength. These moments, simple, ordinary, perfect, were what Marcus had thrown away. He'd chosen ego and conquest over family dinners and bedtime stories. He'd chosen temporary pleasure over permanent love. His loss, our gain. Emma sat beside me after Sophie ran off to the slide. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Are you happy now? Like really happy? I looked at her serious face, this incredible human I'd somehow helped create. Yes, sweetheart. I really am. Are you? Yeah. She smiled, bright and genuine. I like our life. Just the 3 of us. It feels right. It does, doesn't it? She leaned against my shoulder, and we watched Sophie play in the fading afternoon light. The divorce had been brutal, the custody battle exhausting, the year of fighting back against Marcus's attacks nearly overwhelming. But we'd emerged on the other side transformed, not broken, but forged stronger. That night, after both girls were asleep, I opened my laptop one final time to check messages. Among the work emails was one from Rebecca, my journalist friend. Claire, major publisher, wants to talk to you about writing a book. Your story, the legal battles, advice for other women going through similar situations. Interested? I stared at the message, considering. My story had helped hundreds of women already through the article and my private responses. A book could reach thousands more. It could be my final act of revenge, turning Marcus's cruelty into something that helped others, transforming his attempts to silence me into a louder voice than ever. I typed back, very interested. Let's talk. Then I closed the laptop and walked to the girls' room. Emma was sprawled across her bed, still clutching the elephant from Sophie's NICU days. Sophie slept curled in her crib, her breathing soft and peaceful. I thought about the courtroom, about Emma's brave testimony, about the moment the judge had ruled in our favor. I thought about Marcus's face when his bar suspension was announced. I thought about every small victory that had built into this bigger triumph. Safety, stability, happiness. I'd started this journey as a betrayed wife, abandoned and alone in a hospital bed, believing my life was over. I was ending it as a successful businesswoman, a devoted mother, and a survivor who'd turned her pain into power. Marcus had wanted to break me. Instead, he'd shown me exactly what I was capable of. And that, in the end, was the sweetest revenge of all. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story.